you're not just targeting that one thing and then making like a bland documentary or bland song about that topic. You're trying to infuse it with emotion, which requires making some kind of connection with your audience through gravitas and evidence and establishing the right tone and a trust with the narrator and or the singer and the audience. So you kind of have to build these things into the recipe to accomplish the goal of the film, which is to educate someone on a specific topic. But it's not the topic that is the most important. It's like these themes. And from those themes, you can kind of pull out certain motifs, visual, symbolic motifs, or auditory things. And then you kind of just layer everything in. So there's like a science, there's a method to the madness. And I find it's extremely stimulating and cathartic for me as a person, because when I'm tackling these big themes, like it's not like my anger is directed at one person, which is so easy to allow that to happen. Some Klaus Schwab or some head of Pfizer or somebody. I mean, they'll be gone and they'll be dead and irrelevant for the most part in 50 years or whatever. Beyond that, to have something that's going to endure, something that's going to be evergreen or perennial, you have to really focus on the themes that will be relevant to future consumers of your content. How are you going to write a song that connects to someone's heart 100 years from now after this particular conspiracy or this topic is long gone? So there's like a transcendental place that you're trying to connect with your audience on. Do you guys agree with any of that?
I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, because I think that's definitely a core of why we don't try to be too literal when we create something, you know, and circulating around the themes more so and animating the stories within those themes, I think speaks a lot further than, you know, just talking about the drama of the week.
Also, that's something really cool about being a little bit vague in like your lyrics or whatever you're doing, even though, because it seems like these themes exist throughout our history. Like we don't know what happened. We can kind of guess what happened 100 years ago, but I'm like, things are just like extra on fire right now. But these lies and deception and the propaganda, I'm sure, has been like just forever. You know what I mean? As long as the controllers have had their hands on everything, which I feel like has been forever. So it's kind of like you could hear a song from like 50 years ago and it'd still really resonate, right? Because whoever wrote it is like speaking against like maybe war or whatever, you know what I mean? And or even that can go with love or heartbreak, you know, it's the same kind of thing. There's always going to be love. There's always going to be heartbreak. So I think it's just getting to that, like tapping in with that feeling. And that's what music's so good about. You could get you right there.
Well, something that's moved out of us recently too, and I think is a theme in everything we're putting out for now and the near future, is this sort of like man versus machine element, this, you know, empowering the humanness in us before people are coerced to, you know, infuse with technology to a irreversible extent.
Exactly.
And, you know, that to a lot of people that's new, to a lot of people that's still far-fetched, but it's exactly how like Brave New World begins, is, you know, people not being born from people. And, you know, I mean, that's becoming our sort of present reality. So there's, you know, that theme of, you know, like, what does it mean to be human? You know, what does it mean to be a creative? And why is it so important that we touch in with that higher source or higher power, whatever you believe in, affecting your creative field? You know, what does it really mean? We're so close to knowing what we are, and at the same time, we're so close to having that all stripped away from us.
Wow. That's so true. It's an exciting and exhilarating time to be alive. It can be scary at times when you focus in on certain things and tend to forget some of these larger spiritual forces at play. When you focus on the direction of society, it can feel soulless. It can, I mean, it already does to a large degree, because the dominant culture is vapid, is, I would say, devoid of authenticity. And so, yeah, I mean, like, you guys occupy an interesting space in time, wherein during your lifetimes, the bulk of humanity is now transitioning into this sort of technocratic world with the advent of AI and more cyborg stuff and more matrix stuff. And so identifying that in your music, and that is something that will be not only relevant 100 years from now, but probably much more relevant 100 years from now. And then those people will be listening back with this weird nostalgia and like listfulness about the people who lived during that transition point, where you guys tasted the world that came before, where you guys tasted the organic world compared to this like synthetic, artificial, antiseptic sort of world. I think people in the future are going to ask their grandparents what it was like, you know, the same way that we do about like, what was it like before cars? What was it like before phones even? And so I do think that that would be a very wise thing to continue to harp on, because it is a perennial subject that will be more and more relevant as time goes on.
It's definitely, it's like right at our door. And it is so interesting because it's going to affect, well, it will affect everything. It already is affecting music. I mean, I'm sure it can affect film too. I have a friend that's in the film industry, and she's like, AI is going to take most of the jobs. Like it's so terrifying. It's already here. And I'm like, well, it could just make music, and people, maybe they don't even care. They'd rather just listen to an AI song, maybe, you know? So it's just completely, the control system would just be totally taken over. However, I think us as artists and visionaries, it's very, very important for us to start like speaking about these things and making sure people are super aware and being like, think about it. Do you want to give everything away to a machine? You know, like this is kind of the time. You got to make the choice, because we still have the choice. We all have the choice. And it's just, we kind of really need to come together as a collective to make some serious decisions, honestly. So I'd like to, with Spyderland, just kind of not force people are going to do whatever they want, but I'd like to be a voice of like kind of reason, or maybe give some advice to like the new generation of creatives, you know, like, do you want AI to write your song for you? Do you want to go on ChatGPT and write me a song about blah, 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 and just have it write the song for you? Because they can do that now, you know?
Can I interject something? I feel like I hear from people in the Hollywood industry, I hear chit chat, I hear a little bit of panic, and so two things can be true simultaneously. As you're pointing out, the AI revolution is undoubtedly and already has replaced so many things. And that means jobs and human labor. While that is true, I also believe that the connection that I feel to Spyderland by listening to your music, knowing that there are real people behind it, which conveys authentic, real, lived experiences, emotions, memories, challenges, foibles, all of that comes through. And if I want, I can probably go buy a ticket and see you in person. That sort of relationship to a genuine human artist, I think, will become higher in demand once people shift a lot of their consumption habits over to the artificial. That's not to say that artificial intelligence can't make beauty and can't make interesting things. And I'm all about it. Like you can go back as long as you want in the show. I've never been anti-AI. I see it as our generation's like, massive revolutionary tool. Hopefully it doesn't go the way of like the atomic bomb and like be used to kill, but it's a tool that starts off neutral. If it can be used to make things, it inevitably will. We're going to see, we already see so much AI slop taking over the internet, taking over people's social media feeds. And so I do think that you're already starting to get resentment towards it or resistance. And I would just venture a guess that as the decades go on, even as AI gets more and more sophisticated at resembling the human touch, I think above and beyond that, just by my own bias as a consumer, I'm going to seek out things that I know are made by real people. And that's like a hopeful thing, because I think deep down there's the spark in each of us that wants to connect with other humans.
Well, and this blends back into, making the conscious effort, feeling that conscious shift and then putting the intent into making that effort is something that either sparks off in people and they act upon it, or it sparks off in people and they're too settled in their matrix, their corporate, comforts to be able to really seek going outside of it. We were in Las Vegas last week, and it's a perfect example of like a matrix system, sort of everything's just running its own course. We even brought up with the people that we were with that the music that was playing, I'm like, I can't really hear this music. For all I know, it is AI. And I've, thought that about many mainstream playlists you hear out in whatever shopping mall or restaurant in any given city. And it's like, for all you know, it's already there. It's not for the conscious thought. It's interesting because when you put intent into heightening awareness, you can't help but recognize those who have not put intent into heightening their awareness. So, but it doesn't work the other way. No. Those who have not expanded their awareness are just going to look at you like you have the exact same awareness that you've always had. You haven't made any conscious shift. There's nothing different about you. And I don't want this to sound elitist, because it's not meant to be. It's just more of a pure fact. When you expand your consciousness and you are able to read conversations that are happening outside of the normal speaking, you're able to see things beyond what your own two eyes tell you. You're able to see deeper. Then you will be able to read things like auras without even actually seeing those synesthetic colors, adaptations like we all imagine in our minds. It's not quite as material as our reptile brain holds us onto.